Welcome to Bet and Breakfast, a podcast from BetSided.
Hey, does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee?
It's sports betting for everyone.
I'm here to tell you today that the New York Yankees season is done. Stick a fork in them, it's over.
Lamar Jackson, I can't believe he's that low on the list that he's my bet for sure at this point in the season.
Early leans, best bets, props, parlays. If you can bet it, we've got it.
I'm taking the over on this. If you look at the last 5 games, this is a game waiting for points to be scored.
Tom Brady, I think everyone's heard of him. If Brady puts up the numbers, they have the 10th easiest schedule the rest of the way.
Get in, get out, and you're ready to go.
I think they're going to have to give him the award if Dallas ends up locking up this division and possibly even that number 1 seed.
And here are your hosts, Ben Heisler, Iain MacMillan, Peter Dewey, Donovan Smoot, and Reed Wallach.
What comes before anything? What have we always said is the most important thing?
Breakfast.
Family.
I thought you meant the things you eat.
Hello, everyone. We are here for a special edition of Bet and Breakfast leading up to the AFC and NFC championship games today. I am Iain MacMillan. I'm your host today. I'm joined by Peter Dewey and a special guest, Matt Verderam, our NFL insider over at Fansided. Welcome, guys. Can you believe that there are only 3 football games left on the schedule? It sucks. I'm going to miss it. And then we have months and months and months where we just head into hibernation and bet on other sports as we get ready for next football season. But first things first, I want to bring up, before we get into the games today, I got to talk about, of course, Tom Brady. His reign might finally be over, maybe. It was reported that he's retired. Now some reports are coming out that he might not be officially retired. I think he is. I just think he kind of wants to release it himself in the coming weeks. But I'm going to start with you, Matt. What are kind of like the likely dominoes that are going to fall as a result of this? Could someone like Aaron Rodgers take over the spot in Tampa Bay? Who's kind of going to be the best team in the NFC South now? What do you think as far as this whole Tom Brady news?
The Packers aren't trading him to Tampa Bay, so I would be floored if that happens. Like, is it Jameis Winston the sequel there because he's a free agent?
That'd be
and
fun.
He's probably the best free agent available. Like, I think it's going to be something like that. It's either going to be Winston or Teddy Bridgewater. The draft's not chock full of guys who people think are first-round quarterbacks. Would they roll with a Kyle Trask who they drafted last year? I don't know. Look, the reality is if Brady's gone, they're done. But they're not just going to magically pick this thing up and ride to 12 wins next year. Now, the flip side of that is, to answer the second part of that question, the NFC South is an atrocity. That might, if he's not there, that's the worst division in NFL history. Does any team win 7 games? I would have to say the Falcons are the favorite because of the quarterback. But
Yes.
The Panthers started out 3-0 and won 2 games the rest of the year. The Saints are approximately $9 billion over the cap and don't have a head coach. And the Buccaneers now, or quarterback. And then you're going to have the Bucs, who have a lot of free agents, who are an older team, who have no quarterback. There's conflicting reports on whether or not Arians is going to come back if Brady retires. I would imagine Gronk retires if Brady's out. So you look at that division, and it's a race to what, 7 wins?
Yeah, I think my Atlanta Falcons might be the favorites heading into next year, depending on kind of how the offseason shakes up. But I mean, they could be. Peter, any thoughts on Tom Brady?
Yeah, I just think it's like Matt said, they have a lot of free agents. Like if Tom Brady leaves, like you're not bringing back Chris Godwin most likely. Like you're not going to overpay for another receiver, and you don't even have a quarterback. Like they're going to have so many holes on that roster where they built this roster and they brought everybody back this year for Tom Brady because they're like, hey, let's make another run at this thing. You lose him and you put yourself in a spot where you kind of have to figure out, all right, are we going to tear this entire thing down? Which makes me wonder, like, if they do tear this whole thing down, do they get a look at Kyle Trask for a year since they're not going to have a good first round pick this year? And you see, can he give you anything? And maybe you go into next year and try and draft a quarterback in the first round. But it's going to be really weird. I'm honestly shocked that he's even going to retire. I thought they had that team built enough for him to maybe make one more run at it. I always thought Tom Brady would go out on top. So very surprised by yesterday's news for sure.
I always think it's a little, by the way, Gonzo the Beast chimes in, RIP Bucks fan base 2020, 2022. I always think it's weird when players make this big of a decision so close to when they're eliminated from the playoffs, because to play on a season like 5-6 months long, training camp all the way up to the playoffs, get eliminated in that close of a game, it's so heartbreaking that the thought of going back and going through all that again to get back to the playoffs seems like a tall task. and kind of your immediate response is to retire. That happens in the UFC all the time. Fighters retire 5 times before they actually retire. So I'll be interested to see if Tom Brady does kind of stick to it as the offseason progresses. But certainly as a Falcons fan and as a guy who my very first football game I ever watched was Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. He's dominated the NFL the entire time I've been an NFL fan, literally from the start of his career till now. So I'm happy to see him finally go. Let's get into today's games here really quick. But I do want to let you guys know, all the viewers, that Arrowhead Addict will be going live heading into the AFC Championship game starting at 2 p.m. Eastern at the top of the hour. Matt, you'll be joining them as well. So after the show's over, go have a snack, maybe a quick little coffee, maybe a quick little nap, and then head over and check that out. But let's get into that AFC Championship game. As far as the betting lines go, we actually saw the line move up to 7.5 in favor of the Chiefs early this morning. It's now back to 7. My big question, and this is one that's on a lot of people's mind, what went wrong with the Chiefs against the Bengals last time they played, Matt? Because that wasn't that long ago, and the Bengals won the game outright. They ended up clinching the AFC North with that win. What went wrong in that game? What do the Chiefs need to do to be able to win this game and potentially cover as 7-point favorites?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have? Because
right.
they did everything imaginable to lose that football game. They took 10 penalties. They didn't have turnovers. Mahomes actually threw 2 balls right at guys in the Bengals, and they dropped both of them. Now, one ended up being inconsequential. The Bengals got the ball the next play because the Chiefs punted. But, it was a lot of things. The Chiefs, I would say it was their worst tackling exhibition since the beginning of the year when they couldn't stop anybody. They took horrible angles. They blew coverages. They blitzed relentlessly when they didn't have to blitz. They had 4 sacks of Burrow in that game. All 4 of them came when they didn't blitz. They did not have to blitz, and they kept doing it. If you watch that game, you remember the play of the game was a 3rd and 27 late in the game when the Chiefs brought 7 guys on a blitz and singled up Jamar Chase. It was crazy. I'd also say in that game, it was weird. I mean, the Chiefs scored 28 points in the first half of the game. And then out of nowhere, the Chiefs, at the very end of the half, they get a kickoff return for a touchdown. It gets called back on a penalty. And then they dropped what would have been a 70-yard pass to Tyreek Hill. And then that was it. The offense only got 3 drives in the second half. They only scored 3 points. Both drives were short-circuited. They didn't score points by penalties where they took themselves out of scoring range. It was a mess by Kansas. I mean, just all the way around. They did not execute outside of 4 early drives offensively. Everything else was bungled up.
Yeah, and so one of the things you talked about how they blitzed so much in that last game, and we saw a lot how Burrow was really good outside the numbers in that game, a lot of it being in single coverage to Jamar Chase. Obviously, Jamar Chase had his best game of the year, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. Is there a way for the Chiefs to kind of maybe not take him completely out of the game, but limit him in this game and try and make T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, C.J. Uzomah be the guys who beat them in this matchup?
Well, I think they have to. I mean, that I think is number 1, 2, and 3 on the priority sheet this week. Like, they should be able to get home with 4 guys. The Bengals have not blocked anybody at all season. Burrow's the most sacked quarterback in the league. He's not overly mobile. I think he has 118 rushing yards for the whole year, so you know where he's going to be. I think in this game you're going to see the Chiefs do what they did against Stephon Diggs. They're just going to bracket him and say, "Look, you're not beating us." I mean, Diggs in that game had 3 catches for 7 yards. Now the flip side of that is Gabriel Davis went out of his mind for 208 and 4 touchdowns. If you go and look at that Gabriel Davis catch chart, every pass that was down the field, every single one of them was down the middle of the field. And that's where Tyrann Mathieu wasn't. He'll be in this game. I would expect the Chiefs to basically say, look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with Joe Mixon running the ball and with Uzomah and Higgins and Boyd beating them one-on-one. I would be shocked if Kansas City singles up Chase in this game. And if they do, they deserve to lose. Like, I can't imagine after watching that exhibition that they're just going to go, okay, Travarius Ward, it's on you, bud, one-on-one. I think they will double him, and they will rely on the front 4 led by Jones and Ingram and Clark to create some havoc.
Yeah, on that point, actually my favorite prop bet, and I gave this out on Friday or Thursday's episode of Bet and Breakfast, was the over 72.5 receiving yards, which is what the number's at right now at WinBet for T. Higgins. Because I assume if they do lock down Jamar Chase, I mean, that is going to open things up for someone, and I hope that someone is T. Higgins. So that's my favorite prop play, 72.5 yards. I think he hits that over, especially if they lock down Jamar Chase. So Matt, you did kind of answer this question, but as far as on the Chiefs offensively too, is there a player on either side that you kind of expect to have a big game today, or maybe needs to have a big game for the Chiefs to succeed both offensively and defensively?
Offensively, I mean, look, the one guy who didn't play in that Cincinnati game, in fact, there were two guys, but one in particular, McKinnon and Edwards-Helaire did not play in that game. They were both hurt. So Darrell Williams played. Now, Williams hasn't played in the playoffs yet. He's had a bum toe. They think he might be back for this game, but I don't think he's going to get a lot of the carries anyway. I think it's going to be Jerick McKinnon. And McKinnon has been a revelation for them in the playoffs. He's by far the fastest back they have. He's been catching the ball like crazy. He's been a major threat for them that they did not have through really all the regular season. I mean, McKinnon really did nothing. He was hurt or he was sidelined because he was just buried on the depth chart. So I think you're going to see Jerick McKinnon in this game. I think they'll utilize him consistently and effectively. The other thing is, look, the Bengals held down Hill and Kelsey in their first matchup. I'm sure Andy Reid will be scheming to try to figure out ways to get them open. Look, I think the other guy to watch, McCole Hardman has played well down the stretch for Kansas City. He had his first 100-yard game receiving-wise against Denver Week 18. Against the Steelers, he had some big catches. Last week against Buffalo, he had a jet sweep for a touchdown. He also had a big catch in overtime that drove him down the field. They've gotten him more involved. I think in the past, the Chiefs would have been terrified if Kelsey and Hill were kind of mitigated. I don't feel that way now. I think the Chiefs are fine with it, and they're just going to bleed you to death with everybody else. The Chiefs at this point are more well-balanced than they've been at any point this season.
One of the things I wonder, Matt, in this game is we've seen the total in this game really climb from 51 to 54 now. And obviously the first matchup was extremely high scoring, but we talk about how both these teams, they've got to look at each other. They know what they kind of have to do to slow down these two offenses, what they have to change. Is there a way that you would go on the total, or any of your thoughts on will this be a high scoring game or not? Because like you said, the Bengals their best bet might be, Chiefs might just say, beat us with Joe Mixon. If they run the ball a lot, is that a little bit of a takeaway, stay away from the over in this game?
No, I like the over. I think the Chiefs are going to score a lot in this football game. They're at home, and Mahomes has just been on an all-time heater, even by his standards. Like, he's just, since he threw that pick to Watt at the beginning of the wild card game, I feel like I don't know what the exact number is. He's got to be completing clip, like an 80% clip. He just never misses a throw. And a lot of these, the Buffalo game, he really didn't go over the top. In fact, he never attempted to pass over 20 yards in the air. They just run after the catch. The Steelers game, they tried to mix in some one high safety and looks, and the Chiefs just destroyed them. Every time they did it, they went down the field. I think the Chiefs are going to get in the high 30s in this football game. I do. And I think the Bengals, I think they at least get into the 20s. I mean, I think maybe they even get into the low 30s. I think there's going to be a lot of points. The quarterbacks are too good. The weapons are too good. I think it's something like, I think I picked the game to be 38-27, somewhere in that range. And so I think they'll hit the over pretty easily.
So does that mean are the Chiefs going to win, cover the spread, win by more than 7? That's such a tricky spread right at that magic number of 7, isn't it? It
is.
With your exact score prediction, sounds like you think they can cover.
I think they're going to cover. I do. I think this game's going to be close for a while, and then eventually Kansas City is going to start to pull away. Look, that Bengals game in Week 17, I give the Bengals a lot of credit. Like, they were not expected to win. They were the underdog at home in that game, and they played perfectly. Burrow went for 446. Chase went for 266 and 3 scores. They barely took a penalty in the game. They didn't turn the ball over. They executed. They had 5 plays over 30 yards in that game and 2 over 65 yards. I mean, they just got chunk play after chunk play. I think it actually hurts the Bengals that they played Kansas City 3 weeks ago, because Kansas City now is going to say, okay, well, we now know how you want to play, what you want to do. I just think this is a really hard spot for Cincinnati. Like, the games at Arrowhead, the Chiefs have been here a million times. It's not going to be anything they're concerned with. I think the Bengals keep it close, but I think ultimately the Chiefs make them drive 10, 12 plays. And with that offensive line, it's hard to avoid a negative play, whether it be a penalty or a turnover or a sack, or even just a throwaway, where maybe there's a guy open downfield, but you don't have time to get it to him. So I think it's close. And then as the second half goes, I think the Chiefs just kind of start to lengthen and win by, a couple scores.
Gonzo the Beast chimed in. He agrees with you. Chiefs pulling away with the game early third quarter, I believe. So, yeah, I'm on the Bengals to cover. I think they are going to keep it close. With the total, I think a lot of people are trying to overthink it, and I do see some people on the under. But sometimes I think the obvious bet is the right bet to make. And I would not want to be betting on the under and then having this game be like already hitting the over halfway through the third quarter. I would feel like an idiot. Peter, really quick before we move on to the NFC Championship, give me what are your thoughts on the spread or total in this one, Peter?
Yeah, you and I are both on the same side. I think the Bengals keep it within 7. I wish I had waited to get it at 7.5 this morning, just to get that extra half point would have been nice. But I think they can keep it close. I don't think their offense will allow them to get blown out by a huge margin. It being a playoff game, I think they'll be able to hang around. But I agree with you on the total. I've been back and forth between over under. I just think I would be kicking myself after watching what Mahomes did last week and what Burrow has done to end this season if I took the under and then it's like, oh, it's 35-35 with 5 minutes to play. It's like, yep, that's what everybody thought, So makes sense to stay on the over.
Okay, let's transition over to the NFC Championship game. 49ers playing the Rams. Rams are currently 3.5-point favorites at WinBet. The total has moved down a little bit, 45.5. Obviously, the big storyline coming into this game is Kyle Shanahan's success against Sean McVay's Rams. Won 6 straight against McVay, 7-3 lifetime against him. Matt, I'm going to throw this to you. What has been the advantage for Kyle Shanahan, and how much do you kind of value the history between these two coaches heading into today's game?
I value it a lot. When you beat somebody's rear end 6 times in a row, it matters. And they've not only beaten them, they've hammered them in a lot of those games. Like last year, they went into LA with Nick Mullins and won the game. So this is a scheme thing. This isn't a talent thing. This is a scheme thing, which would scare the hell out of me if I'm the Rams. Like now, the Niners are beat up. Trent Williams being out, or if he is out, scares the hell out of me. Obviously, right now they don't know. He hasn't practiced all week. He's questionable. The Niners are just more physical up front than the Rams. Like that's really been the case. I know that's not the greatest in-depth analysis, but if you watch the games, the Niners just blow them off the football. They run the ball down their throats, and Stafford gets under pressure. He's thrown multiple picks in both games against the Rams this year. It just hasn't been a good matchup. And this game, even though it's in Los Angeles, this is going to feel like a home game for the Niners. I mean, it's going to feel like Candlestick South. There have been reports that 75% of these tickets have been sold to Niners fans. It's insane. So, the Niners have just out-physicaled the Rams, and the Rams like to play that game where they'll, 5-step drop, hold on to the ball, take a hit. That's hard to do against the 49ers.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one for me, and I know you and I are on the same side in this one, but I just the 49ers and Jimmy G is kind of where I'm very concerned. So my big question for you, Matt, is who do you think can change this game? Obviously, we know the quarterback play is going to matter a lot, but which player do you think on either side is going to have the biggest impact, kind of change this game, make this what you think the final will end up being?
If the Rams win, I think it's got to be, I'm kind of copping out, I guess, but their offensive line. They've got to block in this game. This cannot be one of these things where Stafford's under a ton of pressure because we all know how that ends. That ends with the ball in somebody's hands on the other side. It cannot be a game where he's getting hit and harassed. They've got to win against Bosa. They've got to win against Armstead up front. If they do that by keeping guys in, fine. I think if they give time, they'll be just fine because Kupp and Beckham are going to torch the Niners' corners. I don't see them being able to hang. But if they can't get time, everything goes out the window. That's a great equalizer in this game. So on the flip side, I'll give you a real deep sleeper for this game with the Niners. Kyle Juszczyk. He is an X factor because he's a one fullback. He can run routes. He can catch the ball. He's a hell of a blocker. If Trent Williams plays, but he's not 100%, I wouldn't be surprised if you use Juszczyk a lot to help with the double out there, to kick out a guy like Miller or Floyd. He's a guy that I could see him playing a big role if they win the game.
Shout out Kyle Juszczyk, one of the last true fullbacks in the NFL. You don't see many Kyle Juszczyks out there anymore. The Rams have already blown a 17-point lead there in Week 18 against the 49ers, Matt. They blew a lead last week, but more specifically about that Week 18 game, do you think the final result, 49ers being able to come back and get the win, is that going to help the 49ers this game, or are the Rams going to kind of have the confidence that they know they can get up big on this team, but now they just need to be able to hold that lead? How do you think kind of that Week 8 matchup is going to affect today's game?
I mean, hell, they beat them 6 times in a row. If you're the Niners, you got to be confident as all get out going into that game. You beat him every time you play him, right? It's like you play your little brother in basketball out in the street. if you beat his rear end every game, you feel pretty good if it's the 7th time, right? I mean, now I don't always think, like, sometimes if this is just a one-off deal where, kind of like we just talked about the Bengals and the Chiefs. Maybe you say, well, you learn from it. They beat him every time they play him. I mean, every time. Now, again, all that being said, I am worried about the Niners from a health perspective. How healthy are they? Garoppolo's beat up. Williams is beat up. Samuel's gotten beat up in the playoffs. Warner and Bosa have gotten beat up in the playoffs. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I do think the Rams are the more talented team with the better quarterback. But they have had scheme issues against them. And so I think the health thing is huge for San Francisco. But I think the Niners are going to go in confident. That's all they should.
Are you saying you're willing to take them on the money line as underdogs, or are you going to take the 3.5 points? Because it sounds like, you're on the 49ers.
I'm going to take the 3.5 points. If I knew Trent Williams was 100%, I would take the Niners to win the game outright. I picked the Rams 23-20 because of the injuries. Mm-hmm. But if Williams comes out and he plays like Trent Williams, I think they're going to beat him. But they own him. They just physically maul them up front. And it's going to feel like they're playing in San Francisco. I mean, the Rams have been practicing with crowd noise all week. So I certainly like the 3.5. It's insane. It's insane. I think the Niners at 3.5 is the play for me, and that's how I'd go.
Peter, what are your thoughts on the game? What's your pick?
Yeah, I'm on the Rams 3.5, although Matt is kind of making me want to lean the other way. But I'm on the Rams. I'll lay the 3.5 for them. I just think at some point, Jimmy Garoppolo being Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come back to bite the 49ers. Like, if they need to score points in this game, like if the Rams are able to score early like they did against the Bucs, like they did against the Cardinals, I just don't know how the 49ers get back in the game. Like we saw last week, it took a blocked punt and Aaron Rodgers being horrible for the 49ers to win that game. Like everything had to go right for them to win that game on the defensive side of the ball. I just think if you have a couple times where they aren't able to get a stop or they give up 3 points in a spot where it looked like they were going to get like a 3-and-out or a stop in their territory. Like there's going to be a spot, I feel like, where it's going to come down to Jimmy G has to make a play, has to make a throw. I just don't know if he can, especially with him being banged up. I just think the Rams have the better team because they have the better quarterback. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Now, we are going to move on to best bets for today here in a moment. But really quick, I do, Matt, want to get your thoughts on the total because it's moved down. What was it, 46.5? I believe it's down to 45.5 now a little bit. So people seem to be betting the under, at least the sharps are, and they're causing the total to kind of drop a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on how high scoring of a game this will be? Are we going to see a defensive battle? Or
I wouldn't go near it, but I think the under.
Yeah,
I think like 23-20 because Garoppolo, he looked like a mummy playing against the Packers. He couldn't throw the ball for a foot, and somehow the Packers still lost that game. But then on the flip side, Stafford just scares the hell out of me. Like, I know he's played well in these playoff games. I get it. You kind of almost always feel though like it's coming, right? Like at some point he's just going to whale a ball at a safety, and it's going to short circuit a drive. I like the under, but I think I love the over in the first game. The under I think is the play, but I think the line's about right.
Yeah, I think I would kind of lean towards the over in that one, too. I think people are underestimating how strong the 49ers offense is. Third in the NFL in yards per play heading into this game. But that's certainly – this whole game is a tough one in my opinion. But I'm going to get to my actual pick here in a little bit because we are going to get to best bets for today. First game, second game, player prop spread, total money line. Anyway, you guys want to go. I want to hear best bets. Right before we get into it, though, just a reminder to everyone who's listening, be sure to check out Arrowhead Addict. Our Chiefs portion of Fansided going live on Twitter and YouTube, I believe, at 2 p.m. Eastern leading up to the big AFC championship game. So be sure to check that out. Like I said earlier, after this stream is over here in a few minutes, grab a snack, maybe a quick nap, and then check out the Arrowhead Addict stream. So let's get into best bets for today. Peter, I'm actually going to throw to you first here. I'm going to change up the order here. Your number one best bet for today. Let's hear it.
Yeah, been on it all week. Bengals +7. I just think, like I said before, I think they have the offense to keep this game close. They're 5-1 against the spread as a road dog this year. They're one of the better run defenses in the NFL this year in terms of yards allowed and yards per carry. I think the question is really going to be, can they block the Chiefs? We saw last week, obviously, Joe Burrow took 9 sacks. That can't happen. You have to be able to at least give Joe Burrow some time to throw the ball. But I as good as the Chiefs have been, their defense last week scared me a little bit. I think the Bengals have the weapons to keep this close. It's probably going to be a high-scoring game, but give me the Bengals +7. I think they cover on the road.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
I'll do a teaser. I think I would take the Chiefs, tease them down to 1, tease the Niners up to 9.5. I think that's what I'm looking at. Like I just can't see the Chiefs losing this game. It's nothing against Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's good. I think they're going to be around for a long time. I mean, the Chiefs basically saw their death on Sunday night with 13 seconds left and somehow didn't even have to kick a 50-yard field goal to tie the game. And then just immediately went down. I mean, they had 550 yards of offense because they're number 1 defense in football. Yeah. I don't think they're losing. And I think the Niners, they could win, they could lose. That game to me is more of a toss-up. But if I can tease it to 9.5 points, I feel pretty good it's going to stay within a 10-point game.
Shout out Ben Heisler, who, of course, was supposed to host today. He's feeling a little under the weather, so I took over his hosting duties here because that was his best bet as well, Matt. He liked the teaser. I think that's a very strong teaser as well. I'm actually on the Bengals to cover, but if you can tease it down to -1, I mean, I think the Chiefs do kind of win this game, just kind of based on experience as well. This is brand new territory for Bengals, for basically everyone in the Bengals. So two-way teaser, Ben and Matt's best bet. Chiefs down to -1, 49ers up to +9.5. My best bet before we wrap things up, Matt, I'm going against you in the Rams 49ers game. I am going to take the Rams to win and cover in this one. I think they are just the more complete team from top to bottom. If they don't turn the ball over. Obviously, that's a huge if with Matt Stafford.
That's the if that costs you money.
And it could. But yeah, and you mentioned it. Both games against the 49ers, the Rams lost earlier this year. Matt Stafford threw 2 picks in each of them. They turned the ball over 4 times last week. Still managed to beat the Buccaneers, although that got pretty sketchy there near the end. But yeah, I'm on, and also Rams. I know the 49ers did have some success on the ground or some decent success on the ground against the Rams earlier in the season, but Rams defense still does rank 5th in opponent yards per play. Okay. So I'm going to kind of trust the long full season numbers. If they can shut down the 49ers run game. By the way, the 49ers did not run the ball well last week against the Packers, who had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. I don't know if it was the weather. I don't know what was going on there, but the 49ers need to step up the run game if they want to beat the Rams today. So I'm going to take the Rams -3.5 for my best bet. So there you guys have it. There is our show. Enjoy today's football action. Like I said at the top of the show, only 3 games left, and we have to go into hibernation until next year. So be sure to check out Arrowhead Addict Stream going live at the top of the hour, and also Bet and Breakfast will be back 9:30 a.m. Eastern this coming Monday. Thank you all for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets and enjoy the action.